Fresh Squeeze Noise Eurorack Patch 10. So usual setup, I got my ABCs going to my output mixer, and then I have my circadian rhythm feeding the clock of the Tempi. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the outputs from circadian rhythm and go into Grandpa, and then I'm going to take the output of Grandpa and I'm going to go into the Dub Junior. Then I'm going to take the output of Dub Junior and go straight out. Then I'm going to start the loop of circadian rhythms and switch to 64 mode. And then I'm going to add just a couple of steps in here. Now I'm going to take one of the outputs of the Tempi and go into Maths. And then I'm going to take the number one output of that and go into the time of Dub Junior. Now I'm going to take another output from circadian rhythm and go into the trigger A of Grandpa. Then I'm going to add a couple steps. Now I'm going to take one of the outputs from Tempi and go into the trigger in of the Mutant HiHats. And then I'm going to take the output of that and go into the mixer. Then I'm going to take one of the outputs from circadian rhythm and go into the trigger input of the Mutant bass drum. And then I'm going to take the distorted out of that and go into the mixer. Then I'm going to add some steps. Then I'm going to take one of these outputs from the Tempi and go into the clock in of sequence 8. Then I'm going to take one of these CV outs from sequence 8 and go into the 1 volt per octave of STO. And then I'm going to take the output of STO's sub and go into the mixer. I'm actually going to take the output from the sub and go into my filter, and then take the output of the filter and go into the output mixer. I'm also going to take another output from the Tempi and go into the channel 4 trigger in of Maths. Then I'm actually going to divide that one up. And then I'm going to take number 4 out of Maths and go into my CV input on the filter. Then I'm going to take one more of the outputs of the circadian rhythm and go into the trigger in of the Mutant Snare. Then I'm going to take the output of the snare and go into the reverb from audio damage. Then I'm going to take the output of the reverb and go to the mixer. Then we'll switch over and add some steps. Then I'm going to take one more of the outputs from circadian rhythm and go into the trigger in of Braids. And I'm going to take the output of that and go into the input of Clouds. And then we'll dial this back. Then we're going to take the output of Clouds and go to the mixer. Next, I'm going to take another output from circadian rhythms and go into the trigger in of Braids. I'm going to take the output from Braids and go into the input of Clouds. And then I'm going to take the output of Clouds and go to the mixer. Then we're going to add a couple steps on here. Next, I'm going to take one of the outputs from circadian rhythm and go into the trigger input of Braids. And then I'm going to take the output of Braids and go into the output mixer. Then we'll switch over and add some steps. Next, I'm going to take one more of the circadian rhythm outs and go into the trigger in on the DSM. And I'm going to take the output of that and go into the mixer. Then we're going to add a couple steps. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe. And until next time.